as already indicated, at the end, all managers should be committed about the change. Yeah? We should agree that it's necessary and we are on the right track doing this. But there are some people in the organization who play a critical role, and these are definitely the executives. Yeah? That's different from company to company. There are companies and there are cultures where if the executive board says we go into this direction, then that's totally clear for everybody. They said that we will go this direction, so we will do it, full stop. While in some other organizations, decisions made by the executive board are starting point for discussions. Really? Let's talk about it. At the end, we can assume that for most companies, changes only work if there is a commitment on the executive board level. If they don't like the project, it will fail. If they don't support the project, they will fail. And that's not only, we use terms like top management commitment, but also terms like top management sponsorship. What I want to talk about here is sponsorship. Okay? Let's have a very simple example. I mean, if you would change anything, money doesn't matter, but if you would change anything in this university, what would you change?
The communication areas from the students, like to what we had earlier in your lecture, like to build this sharing environment of communication and seats and palms and
Okay, yes. We have a lot of classrooms and things like this, the classical stuff, but I would also agree I would love to have more room where we could collaborate, jointly think, inspiring environments. I mean, this building was a kind of starting point, minor starting point. There is still much potential. Now, I visit our president, Mr. Schofer, saying, Mr. Schofer, we need more inspiring workspace for collaboration, everything. How can the reaction be? I mean, he could say, the last thing he could do is, he don't listen, doing something else, checking email while I speak. But even when he listens, maybe he does not understand what I mean, right? Okay, it doesn't get the message, it does not get the idea of inspiring learning space. The next level could be that he says, oh yes, maybe you were true. Positive reaction. Or he says, Professor Trost, you are right. You're right. I accept that you are right. Then I go home. Then I go leave the meeting. Was I successful? I could leave the meeting saying, "Oh yes, he said a kind of yes. He accepted that we have to do it." You all know. I mean, that's very simple. That's a level of commitment that is still not sponsorship, right? That's somewhere in the middle. Here is a very simplified picture, according to a picture from Daryl Connor, the book which I already mentioned. I really recommend it. Say there are different levels of sponsorship. Okay, no idea, ignorance, no idea, attention, I listen to you. Okay, I understand. I accept. If I accept something, then I'm start being kind of responsible for the problem. Yeah, if I accept it. But still, I do not invest anything in solving the problem. Maybe I do not only accept, but I'm convinced. I mean, what's the difference between accepting something and being convinced of something? Huh?
Accept, I see the point, but
Yeah.
also I understand, but convinced I'm ready to do it.
Right. Convinced me, I'm very positive. There's much more emotional, cognitive power behind. While accepting is, there is a good balance between pros and cons. It's more positive than negative, so I accept. Acceptance is kind of passive, while to be convinced, start being active, while investing in something, not only money, but time. Yeah, that's a different story. Yeah, being committed. Being committed, what does that mean? Being committed about something.
You really burn for the project and you really want to make it happen. That
You really want it. Yeah, there's power behind you. Burn for it. Yeah, and I mean, some managers would go so far saying, if we don't make this, I can't continue being a manager. Yeah, I link my professional future with this issue. If we don't gonna solve it, I'm not will be the right person on this position. I mean, that's commitment. So the only thing I don't learn these things by heart. The only very, very simple message, but highly relevant message is there is a really difference of commitment, sponsorship. Yeah, and be careful. If you talk to managers in your future career, think about, did you convince him or her, or was it just acceptance? Yeah, can we count an investment, or is it just convincement? Yeah, for large-scale changes, there is no doubt changes are so painful in many cases, lead to so much effort that nothing else than pure commitment, pure top management sponsorship is necessary. Okay? Now to the organization. You remember our framework, which I've shown some minutes before on the top left-hand side. We have this point sponsorship. That was that. Now we talk about the project structure. Now let's think about this organization. Yeah, we have this hierarchy. We have different functions. Okay? In some companies we have different countries. We have different divisions. So the first thing which you would think about is having a change agent in each function, having a change agent in each country, having a change agent in each division. This is a person that takes care for the change in the different areas of a company. Yeah, it's a kind of, and these change agents build the linkage to the project team, right? And this change agent, they represent the entire target group of the change. That's something which you always have. Yeah, production, sales, administrative functions. Spain, England, Germany, Asia, Europe, Americas. Yeah? We have representatives, yeah, who take care for the change in their respective areas. Yeah? Okay? Kind of ambassadors. Okay? And these change agents, they work together with a project team. Of course, we have a project team with a project lead. What is a project lead? How is a project lead defined? How do you define project leader? Very simple. If the project fails, yeah.
Maybe it's the person who is accountable to get the success of the project.
He is responsible, accountable for the success of the project. Full stop. If the project fails, he is the biggest problem. That's the project. He's ultimately responsible for the project. That's a project lead. With the project team, yeah, and this project lead reports to a steering group. What is a steering group? Steering committee, in German, Lenkungskreis, Lenkungsausschuss. What is a steering committee? What is a steering group? Who is in the steering group? What would you say?
Some executives or some
Executives.
hiring managers.
Right. In our case, maybe one executive, head of HR, somebody else. Right? Okay. Very high level, top managers. Yeah. What do they do? What does a steering group do? They decide. Yeah? They decide. They make decisions. Major decisions. Okay? They would make decisions at the beginning of a change program about the major principles. Do we go for speed? Do we go for quality? Okay? Typically, as a project lead, you report to the steering group. You show, okay, where are we with the project? Where do we go well? Where do we have some risks? How do we deal with the risks? You have this kind of traffic lights typically. Green is fine. Yellow, okay, some issues but solvable. Red is there's a significant risk. And as I mentioned earlier, you will never report that there is a problem. Yeah, you will report, okay, the project is going like this, but there is an issue with this part of the project. We are behind in terms of the schedule. Yeah. Now we have two options what we can do. We can do A and we can go for B. Yeah. A would mean this, B would be this. So please, steering group, should we go for A or should we go for B? And they say B. Okay. That's how it goes. And there's an overall sponsor, definitely an executive, maybe the CEO. He's the one who decided upon the budget for the entire project. Okay? He's the one who ultimately wanted this change to happen. Okay? Now, project team is always, in this project, working with a consulting team. I mean, that's interesting for you also. If you work with a consulting firm, could happen that you support companies in doing large-scale change programs. Yeah? You have a consulting team. Why are they there? Why are they there? Why do we have a consulting team?
I would say maybe one reason would be to bring in information which is not available for the company.
Expertise. They have They have done this for a couple of times. Yeah, they have already helped companies to implement a new recruiting strategy. So they bring in expertise. Great.
I think they also bring some motivation to the employees, seeing people who have experienced this.
Yeah, they can maybe act like ambassadors, bringing examples from other companies. Look, they have done it the same, and this is where they end up, and it was great. Yeah? Okay.
Well, some people say you have the consultants as a way to push something through that maybe your own organization doesn't like, and you can blame on them.
Yeah, you use the consultants to convince some top managers. Yeah, you get an outside view, and they support a certain opinion, certain direction. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you need the consultants only for a relatively short, for a limited period of time. Let's put it that way. So you don't want to hire people for doing all the stuff. Yeah, because then you need to fire them maybe. So it's also kind of flexibility. You simply rent intelligence and work power for a limited period of time. Okay, so that's why consultants are there. Okay, so that's the overall project organization. Really put it very simple. There is one last thing which I need to explain. The sounding board. Sounding board. What's that? If you do something like this, recruiting strategy, implementing a new recruiting strategy, it would be a good idea having 1 or 2 or 3 managers you work with, and you meet with them maybe every week or every second week and talking about, okay, how do you perceive this entire project? Does it go well? Are there concerns? What do your peers think about this? So, sounding board means this is a group of people which is there just to provide feedback to the project team. They don't decide. They just give feedback. Okay? Very helpful. It's a kind of mirror for the project team. Always seeing, okay, how do the organization respond to what we do here? Yeah? To get a kind of feedback from, kind of customer. Okay. So here are some points about the different roles. You can read it through. Sponsors, change agent, target group, project team, sounding board, external advisors, external consultants. Okay? So, this is the left side from our change management frame. Now let's go to the right side. That's the most relevant side. Okay? Let's start talking about communication. I think that I don't have to tell you what we can do in terms of communication. How can you communicate to the people? Or in our case, how can you communicate to the managers? Right? You can use emails, you can use posters, you can publish an interview in the company magazine, you have presentations, you do workshops. So there's a huge variety of things you can do as part of communication. There is one structure which I like because it's, for some things you have available media. They're already there. You have email. you have regular meetings which you do anyhow, so just use them. You have employee magazine. You have them, so use it. But for some change programs, you use new media. You develop things, especially only for the program. Posters, PowerPoint presentations, maybe videos, webcasts. They are produced only for the purpose of this particular change program. I'll talk about the open space events later. Maybe something like the Ask the CEO meetings. Yeah, you just do it just for this change program. Maybe you have a special hotline. Yeah, you use social media. Maybe internally we'll talk about this. More relevant is the differentiation between one direction communication and interactive communication. The difference is clear. Yeah, one direction is one too many. Here is the magazine. Read it. Yeah. Okay. Here is the CEO telling the people what about the future. While interactive is you work together, you start a conversation, both directions. Okay. So that's just what is their slide, and that's kind of clear. The more important point is how to run the entire communication strategy. Okay, so let's get back to this framework. Right? From initialization to stabilization. As I said, every project has its natural life cycle. Question to you. Where should we start with the communication? When should we start communicating to the people after or while the initialization phase? Should we think loud? And in this phase already talk to some people, hey, what do you think? Should we do this? Should we start a project? Should we change? Should we buy this company? What do you think, John? Yeah? Bernd? Should we go together with this company? Should we implement this software? Yeah? Or should we wait with communication until we have finished the design phase? I mean, with the change, they will experience it anyhow. Yeah. What to do?
I have a question. Do you want to communicate to the employees or
Yes,
to the
to the employees. Communication to the employees. When should we do it? When should we start doing it? Yes?
It would be maybe after the setup and principles, everything has already been structured.
Yeah. But somewhere in the middle. Yeah. You're already kind of prepared. You already know what you want to achieve. You have a vision. And now with this vision in your back, you start communicating it. Okay?
It's up to the corporate culture, because if you take, for example, a small entrepreneurial company where everyone should be involved, maybe I would start even discussing whether we should do it or not. But taking BMW or whatever, it would be better, as Valerie said, going after the setup.
So you have some traditional companies, they very much work in top-down fashion, so you would rather wait. While in other cultures where people used to be involved in everything, you would start quite early. Yeah, so depending on the culture and the readiness of the people.
Well, I also think it depends on the type of the project and your priorities. I mean, you cannot just ask every one of your employees if you want to buy another company or not. If it's a stock-listed company and you're a stock-listed company, you have to make the decision now and then you buy the company, and you cannot just, I mean, maybe you can ask 10 people, but you cannot ask even 50, because the more people know, the more complicated it gets.
Don't confuse the market. Yeah, don't confuse your people. If it's about a merger, you would not start a discussion. Because if the market, the stock market, would realize that Daimler is planning to buy Chrysler, but it's still not clear, and still need to discuss, and already the people are involved in this, how to do this, you would confuse the market, and stock prices would go down. So Daimler Chrysler, they did not communicate anything until the day the merger was announced, and then at that point of time, most of the things were already decided. It was one of the really great achievement, Jürgen Schremp at these days, really to prepare a merger with just a few people, and nobody knew anything about it. No communication.
So I think some companies use these rumors about positive things to drive the stock price up.
Managed rumors.
Yes.
Okay, could be. I'm not an expert in this, but I could imagine, yes. I could imagine that you use some rumors,
Yeah, you can also, if you have a private equity or if you have a hedge fund, they're going to start buying stock of the company you want to buy like crazy until they have a small minority stake, and then they can block whatever.
Okay.
You don't want.
So that's reality. Okay. But it's managed.
Yeah, well,
It's managed.
if
It's
something
it's
leaks
decided.
out, and then they're gonna.
Yeah. Okay. So, but what to do now? Yeah. I mean, the answer is always saying yes. It depends. Yeah, it depends. It's a dilemma. It's a dilemma, as shown here at the beginning of the program. Here, how much do you know about how things will be in the future? If you run a restructuring project, if you buy another company, how much do you know after the initialization phase how things will end up? You know nearly nothing. Just the decision is there. Yeah? But the need for information at the beginning is the highest. At the beginning you need to plan. At the beginning you have this vacuum, this need for information. You have a high need, but little knowledge. That's a bad situation which you find in most projects. Yeah? I mean, you learn in project management that with the project planning, you must plan everything, all the actions. You know, you make this Gantt chart and everything, and we always assume that you would know right from the beginning what to do. But you don't, because it's a project. It's new, it's complicated, large scale. At the end of the project, you don't need to plan at the end, yeah, when everything is done. But at the end of a project, you are in the best situation to do the planning, because then you already know everything. So you learn during the entire program, yeah, and the need for planning, the need for information goes down over the time. So this is a conflict. This is a dilemma. Okay. That's why with communication, you have to get back to the principles which I have mentioned. You must decide as the steering group, you must decide, do we make much noise? Do we involve the people? Do we talk to the people as early as possible? Or do we avoid any noise? Do we stay silent as long as possible? Both directions are fine, depending on the company, depending on the program. To summarize, I could say, let's start communicating to the people very early, because then we can include their views, we can get feedback right at the beginning. We treat the people like adults, yeah, being open to the people, saying, you know, this is what we plan. We don't want to surprise you. So give us your opinion. Let's work on it together. Yeah. But there are also reasons to if you do this way, if you start communicating very, very early, what is the problem? We spoke about it. The problem is maybe rumors emerge which you don't want to have. Yeah? In this case, you confuse the people. The people will ask, okay, what happened to me? What about my job? What about my workplace? But you don't have the answers. And not having answers is not a good position you want to be in. Okay? So if you start communicating very early, there is a high risk of confusing the people. Yeah. If you communicate very late, the people will say, oh, why didn't you talk about it? Yeah, why didn't you involve me? You surprise me, you confuse me, but in a different sense. Yeah? There was a secret in this company. Why don't you trust us? Okay? So, whether you communicate early or whether you communicate late, you always have a problem. That's a dilemma. That's why I go back to the principle. That's why it's so important to have a clear principle right at the beginning, saying early communication, no, late communication. Yes, that's what we do. Okay? Now, let's dig a little bit deeper into communication. I mean, you all have understanding about corporate communication. I mean, you know, there are emails which you can use. You can use the corporate newsletter. You can use the company magazine. You can use maybe the intranet. You can do meetings, town hall meetings, all these kind of things. Right? Some things are rather interactive, while others are more one-directional. Right? And for some media channels, they typically exist independent from any change, while others are prepared just for this particular purpose. I don't have to explain you what all these kind of medias are. I mean, this is clear. The more important thing about communication, which I want you to take home, is you might think that, yeah, communication, that's simple. Send an email. Yeah. Let the CEO present the change in front of all people. Let's have department meetings and let's communicate there. Yes, that's simple. No, it's not. Yeah? Communication, corporate communication, that's art. That's very difficult. A lot of things can be done wrong. Yeah. If you do it professional, if you do it really right, yeah, you need a lot of understanding, empathy, strategic thinking. It's not that simple. So, when a company communicates, we had this example last time where a company changes its recruiting strategy. I mean, of course, you can send a mail to the managers and have meetings with the managers. But when you communicate, you almost have a kind of plan. You must have a plan right from the beginning. Yeah. And I mean, we could do this simple exercise with our example, which we have discussed. How would you communicate? And the question are two things. How do we start? How do we proceed? Yeah. What are the different communication steps? How do the different communication steps build on one another? And then how do we do it? And with the how, there are some very simple critical questions. When does who communicate how, what, why, to whom? The when, who, how, what, why, and whom of communication. I mean, some of you will run projects like this in your career, or maybe you will work as a consultant, you support companies in building their change management. When you do this, you probably will find yourself sooner or later in a kind of workshop where you simply have this kind of Excel sheet. Yeah? You sit together with the project team saying, okay, let's talk about communication. And then you will really wrestle. You will discuss hardly. How to start? Okay, let the CEO communicate to the top level managers. Okay, how? In a meeting? Why? What should he or she bring across in this meeting? When? Okay, check. First step. What then? Okay, then let the managers communicate to their people. How? When? Why? What should come across? Okay, check. Next step. And it's not always that clear. It's not always that clear. The point which I really want you to take home is communication. It's difficult. You can do a lot of things wrong. So have a plan. Have a plan. Yeah. How you do things. Okay. I mean, as a kind of exercise, you can think of the HFU or any small mid-sized company and think about any kind of change you like. Implementation of a software, restructuring, and then think it through. How should a communication plan look like? If this sheet would be empty, how would you fill it? I mean, think it through and you will immediately feel how difficult it is. Okay? And again, once you have this principle of let's communicate quite early, communicate late, as late as possible, this plan will look totally different. Okay? Okay? Communication. One thing I'd like to add. I mean, with communication, the special challenge is once somebody has said something, you cannot make it unhappen. Once things are said, they are said. and they get out of control. Yeah. Like we experience sometimes in social media. You post something on Facebook, you can't take it back. It's said, it's shown, yeah, and whatever happens, it's out of your control. And that's critical about communication. You have to understand this. Yeah. Communication, what is said and cannot be undone. That's another reason why communication plan has to be decided very, very carefully. Yeah. Okay. There are professionals out there, and the people in the corporate communication department, they know about all this stuff. They have understanding how to do these kind of things. Okay. So let's finally talk about involvement. And another field as part of change management, as I said. You remember the stakeholder analysis which we have done? Yeah, the pain and power analysis. That's the starting point, especially for involvement. You remember we asked ourselves, okay, who in a company is impacted by the change? Who has power? Who is against the change? Who is a supporter of the change? Yeah, and then we found that some people have much power, have much pain, and they might be against it. So what to do with this person? Yeah, while other people, they have no power, are not affected by the change, and they are also against it, but you don't care. Yeah, and you remember this kind of analysis. This is a very important starting point for everything we do as part of the involvement strategy. I just want to highlight some ideas what you can do when it comes to involvement. Yeah. So here on this picture, I have shown some concepts, some things you can do, and these concepts, as you can see, differ in terms of the reach. How many people can you involve with this measure? Yeah. On the left side, just a few people. It's very individual. While on the right side, you might be able to reach all employees or the entire division. Yeah, hundreds of people, if you will. Okay, individual mass involvement, so to speak. Yeah. Some measures are more intense than the others. I mean, talking with one single person, going for dinner with one single person, trying to involve this person, that's very intense measure. While an employee survey, that's not so intense. Yeah. So, let's have a look. Active role in the project. You remember this guy in the stakeholder analysis? Much pain, much power, but he or she is against the change. This person can kill the change. Yeah? So how to involve this person? I would go for this one. Yeah? Active role in the project. Involve him or her in the project. Give him an active role. Yeah? You rather want him inside the tent pissing out than outside the tent pissing in. So take him into the tent, inside the tent. Yeah. I did a couple of projects in my life. And I used to involve these people in a way saying, okay, let's make sure that you have a seat in the steering committee. Okay. Even it's an opponent. Make him responsible for the success of the change. I mean, that's the idea. Once somebody is responsible for the success of the change, even though he or she is against it, yeah, you are in a better position. That's the very simple idea. That's politics. Right? It's kind of politics. You hardly find these ideas in textbooks, but that's reality. Individual measures. Convincing somebody, have a conversation with some people, maybe opponents, having focus groups, yeah, people of 10 get together and talk about some aspects related to the change. How would you do things? Is it fine how we do this? What are your ideas? I mean, that's a workshop type of involvement. That's also clear. We spoke about the sounding board, having people who constantly give feedback to the project team. Some companies even think about social media. Yeah? I mean, not Facebook, but a Facebook type of platform. Some companies have this Facebook type of platforms internally. It not always looks like Facebook. Sometimes it looks better. But you have platforms inside the company, in the intranet, where people can exchange their ideas, where they can bring in their worries, where people really communicate with each other about certain ideas and things, just like you know it from Facebook. It's just a way of making the people talk about this and bringing in ideas. I mean, I said earlier that there is hidden resistance and visible resistance. And you don't want to have hidden resistance. You don't want the people to talk about the change in the coffee corner. You want the people to talk about their worries and talk about their ideas and what they would do better. I mean, if a company is open to this, it always also requires some courage, you know. Then social media can be an idea. So whenever you hear the term change management 2.0, yeah, 2.0, then this relates to this idea. Yeah, 2.0, Web 2.0. Yeah, people share things in the web actively. Yeah, whenever you hear the term change management 2.0, that relates to using social media to involve the people. Employee survey. Yeah, we talked about it. Employee survey. It just can distribute questionnaires asking the people, what are your ideas? How do you think about how the change is done, and all these things. It's also a minor level of involvement. Okay. Then there is one thing which some of you might not have heard. Open space. Whom of you has ever heard this term? Open space. Okay, one person. There are some other terms related to this. Maybe some of you have heard the term bar camp. Bar, like the bar, beer. Camp, bar camp. Huh? What is that? That's a kind of new way of involving people. We did this also with this university. 600 people, students, professors, entrepreneurs out of the region, met once. It was 2 or 3 years ago, and we met in the town hall in Villingen, in the Tonhalle. Yeah? And we spent 2 days, 600 people, talking about the future of this university. And right from the beginning of this meeting, nobody, really nobody, knew what we will talk about. The people decided what to talk about. Okay. So, I brought in some impressions of open space events which I've done in my career. You use formats where people really can bring in ideas, can just think, brainstorm, you mix the teams. It's very, very open. You don't wear a suit on these events. It's really informal. You just want the people in different sessions, with different kinds of formats. You want the people to open their mind and scribble and write and draw and discuss and wrestle and do all these kind of things just to bring in the ideas of the people. Okay? So this was an open space which I've done, for instance, with Haniel or MLP. This was with Haniel. And the question was here, what are the future recruiting strategies of this large-scale corporation. They learn that they have to change something in recruiting. So we invited students, young people primarily, managers, also executives. And here, for instance, they got some newspapers, pens, and everything, and they basteln. Craft. They had to craft a career website. Yeah, they had a pinboard. They had to craft the ideal website using pictures from magazines, pens, and all these kinds of things. So we learned how they think. What are the ideas? It was really funny. Here we did the brain walk. What is that, a brain walk? It's also a very simple method. You have a lot of pin boards in the room, and on top of each pin board you have posted one single question. Yeah? What do you typically hate when being in an interview? How does a great interview look like? Yeah? What do you want to learn from an employer before you apply for it? For it? Any type of question, really, any type of question. And then the people, they write things as fast as possible. They don't need to think, it's just speed. They write down everything what comes to your mind. And after 3 minutes, you go to the next board and you write down everything that comes to your mind to this question. Then after 3 minutes, next board. And so you rotate a huge group of people from one question pinboard to the next pinboard. Yeah, and after 30 minutes, really, you have a couple of pinboards really filled with ideas, impressions, thoughts. Yeah, that's really funny. Yeah, facilitator with a megaphone. Yeah? It was the idea race, we name it. People had to write down their thoughts as fast as possible. Once they have filled the paper, one of the group had to run around the building, get back, get the next piece of paper with a new question. Then the group answers the question, 10 answers. When ready, take the paper, run around the building, get the next paper, and the group which is the fastest get an award. so and 120 people running around the campus of MLP. Yeah, that was also challenging for me as a facilitator. It was really action, but makes a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, the people really feel involved. Yeah. Okay. I love this. If you want to learn more about this open space, I can refer to a concept which is named the Idea Factory, which was invented by a Swiss company named Brain Store. So maybe you can go to YouTube and type in Brain Store Idea Factory, and you'll find some really exciting videos of how this kind of open space, they don't name it that way, don't name it open space, but you get a feeling, so you get some impression of how these things work. Here the Idea Factory is really at the beginning of an open space. You tell the people, whether they're 20 people or 2,000, tell the people, in the next 2-3 hours, please don't think. Don't think. Just say what comes to your mind. Yeah? Be open, inspiring. Yeah? There are no rules, no limitations, really nothing. Yeah? Put off your tie and get some informal and then think about whatever comes to your mind. So at the end of the boost phase, you have a lot of ideas, a lot of impressions, a lot of thoughts, thousands of things people came to their mind. And then in the compression phase, you start thinking, you start creating ideas. Now the people are really invited to think. And they get time, it's more silent, while in the first phase you really have some loud music in the background. Here it's silent, and the people, they think about ideas alone or in groups, and then the ideas are presented to the entire group, again, whether they're 20 people or 2,000, and the people, they prioritize the ideas. There are very simple techniques how you can do this. That's the selection phase. You select which idea is good, which idea is not so good, based on some criteria. And then in the engineering phase, you take you take the selected ideas and you really think them through, with experts. Sometimes this engineering phase is no more part of the entire open space. It's more part of the follow-up. So, I think that these kinds of formats are very important, and they are also better relate to the way you like to work. I mean, the typical workshops, typical presentations are boring. That makes fun. I think that also we as a university, we could offer things like this. If I could make a decision in business talks, I would really suggest, recommend that we more move from this 10 presentations a day style to let's work together, let's think together, let's be crazy together, related to any kind of topic, together with entrepreneurs, with the students. Would make fun. Okay, that was change management. Oh, that's a lot of stuff, right? Let me summarize what I really want you to take home from this session. First, you should really have an understanding about the different types of changes. You should know what a change is, okay? And then we talked about this entire psychological aspects. Why and how people react on changes, sometimes in a rather dysfunctional way. The emotion curve, you remember, resistance. So that's why we do change management. And regarding change management, really, as a preparation also for the exam, let's think about any kind of example. As I said, implementation of a new software in a mid-sized company, restructuring in a mid-sized company, and then think these different things through. How would I communicate? What would I do as part of involvement? What we had not talked about was this training part. We did not talk about this big training. It's important. Here I can refer really to a session which we had earlier about training. Now, really everything you have learned about training applies here. You will start with a need analysis. What do the people need to learn? You design the training and then you do it. Everything what you have learned around training, learning applies here. I don't want to recapture this, okay? But training and support is a very important part as change management. So you should have an idea what, let's say, a mid-sized company should do as part of change management whenever it comes to any kind of change, okay? If you have some ideas here, then it would be perfect.